Okay, good morning. Just a quick check. If you could let me know in the questions pod, just say yes if you can hear me. I don't need everyone to. I just want to make sure my audio's working. All right, awesome. Thank you. First training of the year, you know, all this equipment might be worn out, so been on break too long. So, good morning and Happy New Year. Today is our first training of 2024, and of course, this is a beginning to be a very busy time of year for us at Harrisburg Project and for all of you as well. So, we are beginning to prepare for the collection of the December 1 child count. We will have preliminary snapshots leading up to that so we can give you an idea before the due date of, where do you stand? Is it too high? Is it too low? Do you have too many errors? All those good things. So we'll go through all the things you need to be looking at and doing now in preparation of the due date, which will be February 21st this year. If you have not attended a training with us before, you can ask me questions throughout the session in the questions pod in your GoToWebinar menu. I'm happy to answer those during the session. Usually makes a better session if we do have some questions, so don't be afraid to ask those. In addition, I have uploaded your handout for today, so if you were not able to get that prior to this morning, you can get it from, again, your handouts in that same GoToWebinar menu. So you will have that. I think that is all of the housekeeping. I'm just kind of waiting here to let everybody get logged in. Still climbing a little bit, so I don't want to take off too quickly. But when we start to level out here, I will go ahead and get started. So remember, if you have any questions, please just let me know. Another thing to remember is when we have a due date, those due dates mean that you have through the day. So technically, you have until 11:59 p.m. on any due date that we publish. So the 21st, you'll have all day. Please don't wait that long, but you will have throughout that day. So when we publish a due date, again, you'll have that day to work on things as well. So, okay, I think we're looks like we have everybody we're going to get this morning, so I will go ahead and get started with the material. Again, if you need the handout, it's in the GoToWebinar menu, and put those questions in the questions pod as we're going through the session if you have questions. So what are we going to go over today? We'll talk about child count data. Why is it important? What is done with it? And I'm going to tell you some things. There are more things. It's used in various places for ISB, for your district, etc. We'll look at the child count snapshots and the due dates that we have coming up. And then we'll go over data preparation. So if you attended with me in December on the preparing the approvals refresher that we did in December, this is going to be very similar, but it's important if anybody missed that, I want you to know what you should be doing right now, again, to prepare for this due date. Recheck edits, warnings versus errors. I'll go over a handful of common error corrections just to talk about those, the ones that we see a lot, which are mainly going to be SIS errors, but we'll go over those. Then I'll show you some reports that you should be looking at, and then of course look at our website and the resources there for you during this process, and of course our support information, so you will be able to get a hold of us if you have any questions or concerns during this process. So the current year child count, of course, is going to be an unduplicated number of students that are active on December 1st. So December 1st being December 1, 2023. So yes, we know that date has already passed. We give you plenty of time to make sure that all your data is intact before we actually collect that. We all know that the majority of the work that you are doing in iStar is going to be put in after the meetings have occurred and things like that. So we know that sometimes, maybe you're a couple weeks out. Depends on the size of your district. Some of you may not have, a very large district. You may have a meeting and get everything entered in that same day, but that's not the reality for some of our co-ops who may have 3,000 or 4,000 kids that they're managing. So we give a grace period always between the actual the due date and what we're collecting. So We are looking at, again, unduplicated count of students active on December 1st, all students that are receiving services. So it's going to be all of your fund codes except for N and U, because of course those are students that are not receiving services but have been tested. So what do we use the current year child count for? So this has been a hot topic this year because, of course, well, in every year, because we have LEA determinations that come out in September. And so we're working right now to really let everyone know that, hey, those LEA determinations are based on some of these indicators that are collected in iStar. And for 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10, those are taken from our December 1 child count. So we have a short turnaround time to make changes, get things done differently within the districts for some of these so that we can improve from year to year. So the indicators that we are going to be looking at, we're going to be taking on February 21st, but those are going to be students that were active as of December 1. So again, the 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. So 5 and 6 do with educational environment. 8's a parent survey that you won't see on LEA determinations, but 9 and 10 are significant disproportionality. So you're going to see those things come up in your districts. So you just need to know that, yes, that data is coming from iStar and it's coming from our December 1 child count every year. Also, our special education tuition cost sheets. So we go through the process during the school year of putting in approval records and making sure that everything's error-free, and we, have a huge push and focus toward December 1, but we also remember that we are working towards reimbursement as well. So the December 1 child count is going to be used throughout the process of costing out programs for student claims, specifically for orphanage. And then in years we have excess cost, it's for that as well. But that child count is used throughout those cost sheets. Previous year child count. So last year's child count, you're going to see that come up on your special ed profile when you're doing your maintenance of effort worksheets. So they call that IDEA excess cost. So it's not the same as the 4 times per cap claim that we have in iStar. It's just, it's very similar terminology, but it's a different report. I think it was due January 15th this year. And that's something that is due through the special ed department. Indicator 4B, your non-public proportionate share, and your ISB report card. So this is just kind of a handful of things, some things that are really important to us in iStar, but things just overall that your district, is going to be held accountable for based on this count that is taken, again, from December 1. So just trying to show you that, we tell you all the time it's important. We tell you need to have everybody entered. We tell you need to be error-free. Well, that's why. It holds a very valuable and great purpose in the grand scheme of things for your district. So, all right. So what is the child count data? I mentioned this already. The records have to be active on December 1. So if you had a student that started on the first day of school in August, they left October 30th, they're not going to be on the count. If you have a student that started in August and they ended on December 2nd, they will be on the count. If you have a student that starts today, they will not be on the count. So literally have to be active on that singular date of December 1, okay? All fund codes except N and U. This is something in iStar, you just need to make sure that these kids are always at the default to include in the approval. Normally it's not an issue, but sometimes a random mistake can result in a student being unchecked on the record. Just want to make sure that anyone you're intending to report to ISB does have that checked. And again, it is checked by default. So normally you don't have any issues with that, but they would come up as an error. So you would know that you weren't reporting them. So want to make sure you have everybody checked that you intend to report. And then approval records that are in the approved status, meaning you do not have any fatal errors on those records. So we'll talk about errors and warnings again, but remember, you can have warnings, you cannot have fatal errors on those records, or the record will not be picked up. So in that instance, it would just be that single approval record for that student that would not be picked up. So if you have 100 students and you have 5 errors, we're still going to pick up those 95 records if they're active on December 1. So we take the collection. We do not stop collecting just because you may have an error or two on children that are affected by that date. So we still take a collection no matter what. All right, so the snapshots and the due dates. So we're going to be getting very busy here shortly. Tomorrow, January 12th, is our first preliminary snapshot. So the ISB IT team will run through the same process that they will on February 21st. And they're going to give you a preliminary number, and they will do that each Friday morning at about 7 a.m. I think the process runs. So hopefully by the time you get in, you'll be able to run the report that I'll show you later, and you will be able to see if the count were taken today, this is what my child count would be. What do I need to do? So you will go through, do I need to add students? Do I need to delete students? Do I have to, errors that are affecting this? What do I need to do to change this count, get it where it should be? Some of you may look at it and it may be fine. It may be up to date and you just need to keep an eye on it for the next several weeks until the due date. That's great. We're going to have all kinds of combinations. So on the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th in January, you're going to get a preliminary snapshot. On February 2nd, 9th, and 16th, more snapshots. So they are preliminary. They are not going to be the final. And your district superintendent will not be verifying any of these numbers formally by completing the verification in iStar yet. So you want to have those people involved. Whoever is going to be responsible for verifying this number in March. So it is typically the district superintendent or someone that they have designated to do the verification. We need to make sure that those folks are involved during these preliminary snapshots, that they like the angle of the number, that it's going in the right direction. Should the number be the same from year to year? No, not necessarily. But if you look at these preliminary snapshots and you're down 200 kids, you're going to want to investigate what's going on. So what we do is we will show you in our grid the previous 2-year child counts so you can compare them to the snapshots that are being taken by week. So you'll be able to see, okay, I'm up by 50 kids this year, but that's been a trend, or those kinds of things. So you'll be able to investigate that based on those numbers. So you'll have those preliminaries. Then on February 21st, after that, you cannot make any changes. So at 11:59 p.m. that night, the system will lock. At that point, there will be a lockout for a number of days. We set aside 2 weeks for ISB to finalize the data. However, it's never taken that long. So February 22nd, you'll be able to come in and look in iStar. You'll be able to run reports. You'll be able to work in personnel. You will not be able to make any edits in the student approvals on February 22nd. When ISB has completed their finalization of the data, we will open the system back up. So March 7th is probably the latest that would be available again. Then on the 8th through the 22nd, so again, at the latest the 8th, but due on the 22nd, the superintendents will come in and certify or verify the child count number. So they all have to do that. Every district in the state is responsible for having this done. We've never had an issue with that. But if we do have any calls about it from any superintendents, it's about, I'm just supposed to verify this number. I can't change this number. So you need to get across to the person responsible that now's the time to change the number. This is the time period. We're giving those snapshots. We're showing you every week what it would be. So if you don't agree with it, you've got, again, 6 weeks or more to take care of it before we do the lockout. So this is where the superintendents need to be looking at the numbers and making sure that they're okay with that number, so that when it comes time to certify, that they're comfortable and confident in doing that. Okay, so that's our timeline coming up from now all the way through March, and then after that we'll start on claims. But this is what we're going to be up to right now. We will have a separate training on how to do the child count certification. I'm going to have one, I think it's this month still, so it's going to be well before the due date for that, but we will have instructions on what you need to do when it is time to certify. Just have to remind those superintendents and everyone involved that We're not doing that yet. Right now, we're working on the data. Once it's finalized, then we'll do that. So how do you prepare? What should you be doing? So first of all, if you still have students that did not attend your district at all this year, you need to be sure you're deleting those records. So if they did not come a single day to your district this year and you still have a record for them that rolled over from last school year, you need to delete them. You'll use the red X to do that. When you click on the red X, it will open the student's approval record. So you have to look at the record and make sure that you indeed want to delete that record. So you'll scroll down to the bottom and you'll click delete in the bottom right hand corner, and then the record will officially be deleted. Okay, so if you hit the red X accidentally, it's not just going to wipe it away. We make you go through 2 steps to ensure that you truly want to delete a record that is in the system. So obviously you're going to be adding records. So any students that are new this year, anytime during the year that they have started, you want to add those records in. So you can use the add. This is going to be on the student search. Of course, you're searching the student information system whenever you're looking for these kids. So you can either have their SIS-ID or their first name, last name, date of birth, and gender combo. Either one of those will allow you to find the student that you're looking for as long as they do have a SIS-ID issued. Once you locate the student, you click on that select for the check or the check mark, and that will immediately start an approval record for them. So we want to make sure that we're adding new kids in. We don't want anyone missing. Okay. So delete, add, edit. So throughout the school year, you're going to have meetings, annuals, re-evals, maybe amendments, those kinds of things. What you look at throughout the school year is, did something change during these meetings that was significant enough that it is going to affect data on the approval record? If so, you can come in, you can edit the records, or you can do an end add. Now, I recommend end adds so you preserve your history. Sometimes an edit may just be putting an end date on a student if they have left. So you need to be careful with when you're deciding, do I want to do an edit or do I want to do an end add? So many times if something changes, I would say, well, the student's still there and they did have these services for this period of time, and then something changes. In that instance, I would recommend you do an end add. What that will do is allow you to end the current record when the previous services stopped, and then have a new record for when the new services begin. So that's our recommendation. Mostly, again, the edits are going to be for if you look at a record and you see a mistake. Of course, you don't want to preserve that mistake with the end add, so you can just directly edit, or if you need to end a student. So if they have moved this year, you served them for a little bit, they've moved out, you can give them an end date and an exit code by using the edit. So those are the basic functions that you're going to be performing for these kids as you're preparing. And then, of course, you're going to be looking at your errors and your warnings. And so, again, warnings are okay. They're going to be in green. You want to make sure that you read these. If you do need to make a change, then do that. But if you read the warning and you say, okay, I've been warned, or there's nothing you need to change about the record, then you can leave the warning. It will not prevent that record from being reported. But fatal errors are going to be in red. They always start with F for fatal. And those are going to be the errors that you need to be working on now. So if you have fatal errors when you run your error report, then those are the things you need to be addressing as we're approaching the due date of February 21st. We want to make sure that we get started early on these. We ran some somewhat preliminary error counts this week, and not including Chicago, there were over 6,000 errors statewide. Again, that doesn't include Chicago, but everyone else, there were about 6,000 errors earlier this week. So that's not horrible, but we definitely want to see that improve over the next couple of weeks before we start sending out emails and all of those good things. So common error corrections. Number one errors that we typically deal with are going to relate to the student information system, also known as SIS. And so we do have a strong relationship with that system. The first one, no student enrollment found in SIS. If you see this, that means that they don't have an enrollment in SIS for the student for the school year. So they have not added a new enrollment. So we need in SIS, we need an actual enrollment. Okay, we need an enrollment to exist. Moving on from there, then we're going to start looking at those different placements. So, you know, if you get resident RCDT, so student not found in SIS for resident RCDT, that means they may have an enrollment out there. It just doesn't match your resident district. So your district needs an enrollment. Okay. So you're going to be working with the sysadmin at that point to make sure that that resident district matches as well as the school. Next is student not found in SIS for serving RCDT. So we are going to be looking at the serving district in ISTAR, and we're going to compare it to the service provider. If it is any fund code except for L, if the service provider and the serving district don't match, we'll even go down and look at the school level. So we try to give a little grace on that because sometimes our serving districts might be, you know, a little bit different, but we want to make sure that that physical location and that actually where they're seated does match. So you get a little grace on those, but you're looking at the serving information. So again, serving district, serving school in ISTAR, service provider, RCDTS is what it's going to be in SIS. So we need to make sure that those are matching. So those three are probably our biggest student information system questions that we have throughout the school year. And unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, it's something that you cannot control from ISTAR. And you will have to go have the sysadmin change those things. Now, sometimes you know, we'll have people that will call and say, oh, that's right. You know, that co-op runs that program, not this district. So you can change ISTAR to match the SIS enrollment. But, you know, whichever system is incorrect is the one that needs to change. Next, the ed environment. If you see that this is valid for ages 3 through 5, EE codes need to be edited to the school age codes. So we're looking at kids that are 5 and in kindergarten. So you should have seen a lot of these at the beginning of the school year, but if you haven't done a lot of work in ISTAR yet this year, then you might see a lot of these if you have grade school age kids. So as soon as they come to kindergarten, as long as they're 5, all of these educational environment codes have to be changed to the school age codes. So you're not going to be using these 23, 24, 25, the 30s. You won't use those anymore. You're going to go up down to the 01, 02, 03. So typically you're probably looking at maybe like all of your kindergartners that need to have this done. So if you haven't been in the system and making corrections this year yet, you're going to see a lot of those. And then the next is the disability code for N. So it's only valid through the day before the 10th birthday. So when the student turns 10 in ISTAR, you're going to get an error if you're still using the disability code of N for a student. Now, what we require you to do is an end add for those. So sometimes we have people call, actually a lot of times we have people call and say that they're trying to change the disability of N on a record and that ISTAR won't let them, that it's grayed out. That is because we really want to preserve the history of these these disability of N kids. We want to make sure that we have that. And so ISB asks us to enforce the end add to preserve, again, that time period when the child was still a disability of N. So our other disabilities are not like that. If you have an A and you want to change it to a B, you can just open the record and do that. But if it's an N for developmental delay, then we are going to require that you do an end add, create a new record, and keep the old record that shows that disability of N. So, and I do have a YouTube video on that, so a short snippet on that. So again, through the 10th birthday. So what can you look at when we put these preliminary snapshots out? Well, the child count snapshot by resident district is going to be a report that's under student and approvals. And this report will only update when we do the snapshot. So tomorrow, when you get to work, you can come in and you can run that report and see what is my count, who's on my count, who shouldn't be there, all those good things. That's going to tell you if we were to take the count tomorrow, Even it's preliminary, but if it were your official count, this is what it would be. All right, so you're going to look at that number. Then maybe you've got time next week to work in iStar, get that number going. Either way, either direction, whatever you need to do. So say next Tuesday you want to check and see, where am I at? What have I done? You can't run this report. We're only going to update it each Friday. So run the one above it. This one will change as you change data. Approvals reported for child count. But again, the one that I have highlighted here, child count snapshot by resident district, it will only change when a snapshot is actually taken. So 12th, 19th, 26th, etc. On February 21st, since the system locks and ISB does look at the data and see if we can make it, we help them as well to see if can we make any improvements. Can we, you know, fix a sys error for you? Do we see that you really have the enrollment and someone else is causing the problem for you? Those are the kinds of things that go on during that lockout period, looking to improve the data to see, is there anything else that can be done? They also eliminate duplicates between, so if you have kids that are residential and tuition at therapeutic day schools, we only want to count them one time. Those are the kinds of things that are done during that time period. So after that lockout is over and the system opens up for certification for the superintendents, this report will never change. So you'll be able to come back year to year to year and look at this report. So basically, when a snapshot is taken, this report will update until the final is taken and then no more updates. Okay, so this is what you want to come look at tomorrow. See, what's my count? You know, who are the kids? All those good things. It's an export. It's going to go into Excel. You can, you know, get your count. You can sort, filter, do all those things you want to do in Excel that may or may not help you. All right. Our website, we have so many resources here. We're going to be putting up recordings of all the trainings that we're doing like we always have. So this one is being recorded. Once it has been transferred over to that we do the closed captioning and all those good things. So once it's ready, it will be here under hot topics with the notes. You can come back and watch this. So just know that the hot topics, it's going to be relevant to everything that's going on right now. We'll have all of our instructions that we put out for certification, our trainings for certification, all those good things there as well. Moving on, our manuals and guides, our upcoming deadlines, you definitely want to keep an eye on that. Okay, and then how you can get a hold of us, email us, call us. We're here to help all of you. I do have a question. All right, so child count is used for proportionate share. I don't know if you meant to say not used, but child count is used for proportionate share. Okay, as far as CPS goes, so what they will do, they have a time period where they do their big uploads into iStar. So they've just done one, and I think they'll have one more. And then after that is when they start doing things inside iStar, eliminating duplicates and all of those things. So they will do that. It's just that they're not to that point yet. So they will get to that point in their process. I can't remember what their last day is that they're allowed to upload it. It may have already passed, but that is what they are up to. So that is how you know, the process where they operate. So. Okay, so the proportionate share, It is taken from the child count. I don't think that I had a full list of everything the child count is used for. So they use the child count for that. They actually look at, they look later in the year to see have any of those been added. So they will give you through the end of the school year through July 31st to actually finish working on it. But yeah. Okay, any other questions that I have? Okay. What, I just see indicator 13 error. What is it? Does it need to be filled out? Okay, I'll wait for you to let me know about the indicator 13 error. Oh, if it's due now, when does that need to be filled out? Okay, if they're 14 and a half or older, it needs to be filled out now. If you come up, if they don't have a plan yet, you need to complete it and you'll have to put in no's. But you need to let the IEP team know that you've put it in and that it is at a no. And then if they work on the student's transition plan and get it updated, you would want that to be a yes, but you'll have all the way through the end of July before they take compliance on it. So July 31st will be the deadline for indicator 11 and 13. Okay, and then I have had some emails. This is a little bit off the subject, but I have had, it will pertain to this report. I have had some emails about IEP ratio this year for 21-22. It's to do with Medicaid, and I had requested the report. There was an email that was sent maybe from a vendor onto one of our clients, and it had an attachment that said, do this in iStar, and the attachment didn't come through to me. So I'm waiting to see what it is that they are asking for. But I think that it's probably fairly straightforward as far as what the instructions are. So, I mean, if I had a little more instruction of exactly what they wanted, I'm sure that we can get it out of iStar off that child count report from last school or from 21-22. Okay, so thank you. One vendor asked for approvals reported for child count from iStar. So if you want to run that report, it's the same one we looked at. You just changed the school year back to 21-22. So fairly straightforward. That is typically what our Medicaid vendors ask for this time of year anyway. They want that report as soon as the child count is complete. Okay, as far as indicators, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. So 5 and 6 are based off of EE codes that you put in on the approval records. So no, they're not obvious ones. 9 and 10 are going to have to do with race, ethnicity, those kinds of things. So again, they're not obvious things that you're filling out like 11 and 13. All right, the IDEA excess cost worksheet for maintenance of effort, your business office may have done that. I don't know. Okay, so one thing I did forget to mention was on recheck edits. That is running nightly right now. So you don't have to recheck edits, but you can run your error reports on your own. And of course, we will shortly start emailing you error reports every morning. And then as we get close, we're going to call you. So if you still have fatal errors, but recheck edits is running nightly, so you don't have to run it every morning. You can come in, run your error report, and know that it's up to date as of that moment. So if you want to get a jump on the error checking of your, for your district, you can go ahead and start doing that. Again, hoping to see those drop just a little bit before we start emailing. I hate to send out 6,000 emails, so, but maybe we need to, so. I see a lot of familiar faces in the session today, and you're not the ones that worry me, so. Okay, any other questions? Okay, guys, I don't see anything else, so I will let y'all get, and yeah, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Thank you guys for attending. I'm looking forward to going through the child count certification this year. I felt like I got burnt out last year, and I'm actually excited about it. I'm ready to be busy, and if any of you are going to be at IAASE, I will see you there in February as well. But yeah, I'm excited for the new year. So just remember, if you have any questions, please let us know. If you don't know what to do tomorrow, give us a call. We'll help you navigate through and show you, what track you're on. So please let us know anytime that you need our help. So everybody stay safe. We've got weather coming down here maybe, so everybody stay safe, and I hope that everybody has a good 3-day weekend if you get it. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.